Welcome to the Oh So Spurs podcast, where we are delighted to bring you an episode off the back of a brilliant performance, beating the biggest, well, not the biggest, but arguably the best team in world football. Yes, they may have rested some players, but we'll show you why Spurs were in fact the scrappy young underdogs in that performance. But who was the man of the match? Has Pape Sarr earned a start? Magic Kulusevski once again. Are we now going back to playing one number 10, and are we taking cups more seriously? And how long does a rebuild take? To discuss all these great topics, I have with me Sai. How are you, sir?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. Not too bad at all. And I like the we're back to winning ways, after a defeat at Palace, and you saw it. I'd say Twitter does go into meltdown after one defeat, doesn't it?
It does indeed.
If we put this into context, we've won 8 out of 10 at the moment in all competitions.
Yeah, exactly. 8 out of 10. But for some reason, we are supposedly in the doldrums with no idea what we're doing and no idea where we're going.
Exactly.
So should we start with the game, Si?
Yeah.
I did want to start with a stat that despite Sky's best efforts to paint us as an experienced, full-strength Tottenham versus a young City side full of academy products, the average age of the Tottenham squad was 20. Tottenham side that started was 24, and the average age of the Manchester City side that started was 26. We also had the youngest player on the pitch by 3 years. So that was Archie Gray at 16. Is he 17 or 16 now? Anyway, he's 2.5 years younger than the youngest Manchester City player that was on the pitch. But anyway, just getting that disclaimer out there. What did you make of the performance itself?
I thought it was a really strong, mentally resilient, tough performance from the team. I thought we started really well. We looked like we wanted it right from the start. We looked like we were at it right from the start. And let's be straight about this this nonsense about Pep playing the kids. Like Anne said, they're not his kids. They're kids that are at Manchester City, by the way, right? These are extremely good footballers that would probably waltz into any other Premier League first 11. So let's be really, maybe not the Liverpools or Arsenals, but most of those kids would get into our first 11. To be fair, they're a decent side. You don't get into the Man City squad if you're not any good. And the other stat as well, I've got to give Stu a bit of a shout here. He posted when we were having a bit of discussion pre this recording. He posted in there the Premier League experience that was in those two teams as well. And until you hit Solanke on 141, City had 4 players that have got more Premier League experience than anybody else in our team.
Yeah.
Well, Stones 243 games, Aki 226, Gundogan 196, Foden 170. That wasn't a particularly inexperienced side that they put out. Yes, they had some youngsters in there, but so did we.
Well, exactly. You look at their side and you go, Stones, Gundogan, Ake, Foden, Diaz, Lewis, Nunes, all Champions League winners, all world-class players. Even Ortega, their backup goalkeeper, fabulous. And they go...
Not too shabby, huh?
Not too shabby. And they go, but we had 2 academy players. 2. Ooh. We go, whoa. Yeah. And they go, you had none. And we go, well, just... You also bought these players, right?
Yeah.
You just bought them when they were aged 7 or 8 years old. You picked up the world's best youngsters out of some football academy around the Manchester area. It might not even have been from the Manchester area, but because of the club you are, you get first pickings and all the best academy kids. They want to play for Man City. They want to play for Pep Guardiola. They don't want to go play in, League One or the Championship where a lot of other clubs in that place are around. So you've just bought these things earlier and built them up.
Exactly. So, we might have had academy players out, but do you know what? We had an 18-year-old at right back. Gray was at right back, right?
He was.
I thought had a really good game. Certainly second half, I thought he had an outstanding game. So it's and I don't know where Sky get that narrative as well about the average age of the plucky performance by the youngsters from City. I don't know what drives the narrative, really.
Do you think Pep built that, though? He really worked hard the best managers do it. They work very hard to build the narrative that suits them going into games. And I feel like he was painting that picture from the start. I won't play any first team players. I won't do this. I won't do that. And then you look at the subs they brought on. People said, "Oh, we were just throwing on academy players in the second half." I was like, "No, you weren't. You brought on Bernardo Silva, Gundogan, and Kovacic. Like, again, they're world class
amateurs, mate."
Unbelievable. Someone said to me, I put it on Twitter, I said the average age of each squad is this. And obviously it annoyed all the City fans. Someone said, that's because Gundogan's 34. If he wasn't in the team, our average age would have been the same as yours. Okay, so if we played a newborn who was 1 day old, the average age of our side would be 21. You can't just take out and make someone 0 years old and say, if one of our players was 0, we'd have a younger team than you.
But and then sort of like but have a look at it as well. So Pep builds the narrative. So what? So what? It's like that maybe that's more for his own teams, from his own team's perspective. But it shouldn't make a difference to us. We went out there and we played really well. Bit shaky at the end of the first half, and they put us under a lot of pressure in the second half, and we held firm, mate. That's why I think we were mentally really resilient, and I thought we showed a lot of professionalism there in the second half to hold on to that, and we could have, should have put it further out of reach, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree, and we'll jump into that because I wanted to ask you a bit more about specific players and where we won that game. But just we're finishing off on Sky conspiracy theories and all that stuff. Did you see that Johnny shared it with us? Not Johnny, our Johnny from the pod. Johnny L, friend of the pod, Johnny L. There's a message going around from a Galatasaray fan that's popular in Turkey saying that the royal family of the United Kingdom have stepped in and made sure Spurs play home either side of the fixtures against Galatasaray so that we can field a stronger side. So the royal family are now dipping their toes in to ensure we win. So
I reckon, Chaz is he's a massive Spurs fan. Massive Spurs fan. Yeah, without a doubt.
Oh, he is. Yeah. Lizzie was huge as well.
Thanks, Chaz.
Yeah. But back to the game. So we seemed to get the formation spot on, I thought. But the key difference was we're playing back with 110 again. Do you think that's permanent, or is that just temporary to rotate players?
It's a good question, because when did we see it first? Was it against Man United where we saw the double 10? Was it against Man United we saw it first?
I'm pretty sure it was,
and it looked really good, right? But then Man United were really poor. And we were then saying, well, if we unpick the lock, is that the silver bullet? Is the 2 10s with a deeper? And then it came undone in the next game, and the change. So for me, I think we'll come on to the best players or man of the match. But for me, Bentancur with another player at the back of that midfield feels like the most solid. And I think now Decky's giving Maddison a real run for that starting position in that number 10 role. Whilst Maddison might be the more elegant footballer and might have a slightly better range of passes, Decky just seems so strong in there. He seems like this sort of modern number 10, and I'm not saying he's Jude Bellingham, but that sort of Jude Bellingham-esque type, big, strong, can run with the ball, play off both feet. Yeah, he's got the ability to do that, and I think he's going to give Maddison a run for that starting position. So to answer your question, I think he will go with that for Sunday as well. I think he'll start with that 110, and I think it'll be Decky. I wouldn't be surprised if Madders gets dropped.
Yeah, and if you look at the squad depth, it kind of makes sense to lean on your central midfielders because you've got more depth there and play an extra round there as 10s, because you've only got 2 10s in the squad. Central midfield, we've got Barry Val, Bissouma, Gray, Bentancur, Sarr. So you've got 5.
You've got Gray that can play there.
Yeah. So you've got more, and even Kulusevski can come deep and play in that role as well.
Yeah.
So I feel like we've got more options there. And it's kind of, it's like, I think if we're playing Ipswich at home, play both Maddison and Kulusevski against the low block and really try break them down.
Yeah, and you can afford then against someone like Ipswich, you can afford them. So when Madders plays in that dual role, he drops quite deep quite a lot of the time to get the ball in that sort of half space on the left hand side, and you could afford to do that a little bit more against teams like Ipswich. What you can't do is afford to do that when you've got players like McGinn in the midfield on Sunday.
Yeah, agree. So Sunday's going to be the big one to see.
It's going to be a big test,
especially with a few names out. But we'll get onto the preview for that later on in the episodes. But Sarr, I think Sarr and Dragusin in that game went under the radar a bit from pundits as well, because they're so naturally comfortable in the Premier League, but they're 22 years old.
I know.
Phil Foden, everyone was waxing lyrical as this young player of the year at 24 when he had a good breakout season. Yeah. Sarr's goal was something special for a 22-year-old. I'm surprised it hasn't been given a bit more attention.
And especially when you see it from behind Sarr, when you see that angle where it's directly behind him, and you see how much he starts it outside that right-hand post, and it just comes in and clips and goes. Because anywhere else, any further in, and Ortega saves that.
Yeah,
because he wasn't far away from it at all. So he gets that. If it's an inch the other way, he gets that. Perfect strike. Had a lovely little layoff from Decky as well. I mean, it was just, he didn't have to break stride, did he? He was straight onto it and side foot, full power. Lovely goal.
Talking of Decky, I was going to ask next about man of the match. It's a tough one in there because I thought there were 3 or 4 players who were excellent, but Decky was there he was involved in both goals.
Yep.
Once again, his running power and his energy was phenomenal. Is there an argument for anyone else's man of the match for that game, or is it shoe-in for him?
I don't think it's a shoe-in. I think he's knocking on there's like to your point. I think there's a couple of players there. I think Bentancur was outstanding. I thought he was absolutely outstanding against City. And again, it's one of those games where he didn't stand out that much because of it was his play off the ball as much as his play with the ball. He defended those channels superbly on Wednesday, and I think he had an outstanding game. I think he's getting back to his best, and if we can get the best out of him, my God, what a player that man is.
He is, and it's timely because Bissouma. I don't know if we look at Bissouma and say we've seen these glimpses of him as this incredible world-class midfielder in flashes.
Yeah.
But I think you've got to take a player by their averages, right? And over the 80% of the time, he's decent. And he's kind of a player you'd say, yeah, I could see him being really important for a side in the Europa League. Vying for that 6th place in the league. So a very good footballer.
Yeah.
But I don't think he has a ceiling that someone like Bentancur has on his best day, or Kulusevski has in his best day.
Yeah.
So I do wonder if Bentancur could come in against Villa, starting that midfield over Bissouma. Do you think?
I think he could do. I think Bissouma gives you a little bit more defensive quality than Bentancur does. When Bentancur reads the game effectively, he delivers that defensive option by his reading of the game in the way that he cuts out the pass and cuts out those through balls. I think Bentancur and Sarr together, what Bentancur allows Sarr to do is make those runs, those sort of typical box-to-box 8 runs that he makes. Just doesn't feel as solid when Bissouma's in there, because Bissouma doesn't carry the ball as well as Bentancur, I don't think.
No, and he was actually a bit rattled in that game. I thought Bissouma, he could have been sent off. There was arguments that he should have had 2 yellows.
That got a bit, and I think he got rattled a little bit against Palace as well, didn't he?
He did.
Decky got a bit riled against Palace as well. I mean, I think the whole team were a little bit riled against Palace, and we've done that. We've done that review already. But I think you're right. He did get a little bit emotional.
Well, the thing is, I think we look at a squad, we look at games like that. We've got enough players to build a coherent team. But if you were to say, what's the perfect Tottenham team look like that could challenge for a title in the league? It still lacks that really good standout number 6.
Yeah.
That is unquestionably starting each week. Everyone uses our own Rodri. Well, if it was only that easy to go get your own Rodri, but someone maybe who's, I think, was it HG who said, what we needed in that window was when we sold Skip was a much better Skip. And we sold Skip and Højbjerg, and we're expecting to sign a better version of Skip and Højbjerg, but we prioritised other things based on our needs. But if we thought that maybe that was going to be Gray, maybe it will become Gray, but it's not right now. So do we still need to go get that?
I think we probably do at some point. But to your point, was that the priority in the last window? And it comes back to the topic that we've been discussing time and time again. How long does a rebuild take? Because you can't just go and get 11 players and chuck them into a side and it will work. You've got to think about where your relative priorities lie. And to your point earlier, I mean, Højbjerg and Skip moving out, Winks moving out over time, and then us rebuilding with young players in that middle of the park with Bentancur, with Sarr, with Kulusevski. Actually, it's a decent midfield. Is it a championship winning midfield? No, but I think we had to strengthen in other areas first. I mean, if we had have strengthened in the midfield but hadn't bought Dragusin, people would be screaming out for that centre back option, right? Because that was high risk. I don't think the midfield at the moment is high risk, even though a decent number 6 in there, without a doubt, would be a great signing. And if you look at the winning sides, they have that spine, don't they? They have the solid centre-half partnership. They have the strong midfield number 6. They have a decent centre-forward and probably a decent 10 up that spine. And then the rotation goes around those guys.
Well, and you only have to look back to the squad Ange inherited. And that was only 18 months ago, right? And we look, the only centre-forwards we had in the squad were Kane and Richarlison. And look, Kane was gone. So you put them in there, but realistically, it wasn't like Ange said, get rid of this guy, I want the money. He would have kept him if he could. So Kane was gone. So he had Richarlison as the only striker in that squad. So he's thinking, right, I've got to get in the squad. Another striker is one thing. Yeah. On the left wing, he only had Son and, Perisic had done his ACL, so Perisic was off. Yeah. So he only had Son. So he had one left winger and one striker. No depth at all. One injury. There's no one else in that squad who can play there. Kulusevski was our right winger. We didn't have any other right winger in the squad. There was none.
Nope.
Because Kulusevski was right wing, we had no 10. Not a single 10 in the whole squad. So he already is saying, I need a striker, a left wing, a right wing, a 10. Crikey, all right? That's just to get started. Midfield, I've only got Bentancur, Bissouma and Sarr because Højbjerg and Skip aren't up to it. So he's got 3 players for those 2 roles. One injury and it's over.
Yeah, and to be fair with that midfield as well, let's not forget Bentancur was out injured when he took over, and Bentancur hasn't had a full season back yet.
That's very true as well. So he's already saying, I have one left winger, one striker, one right winger, no 10, 2 central midfielders for 2 central midfield spots. So 1 injury in any position, and I'm already playing Emerson Royale on the wing. And talking of which, right back was actually probably the strongest position. It was Royale, Spence, and Porro. So that he's probably saying that's pretty solid.
Yeah, but Spence was on the fringes. But Spence was out in the wilderness at that point, right?
He was. That's true.
So he wasn't really in the mix. So that's the only place where you had some backup. But you didn't have the backup for Porro in the sense that you had a player that could play the same type of role as Porro did. Emerson Royale, as much as we loved him, and not a bad word said against him from a personality point of view and an application point of view, he's a solid right back. But that's not what Ange wanted.
No, it wasn't. But at least he said, if he gets injured, I've got a human being that can play there.
Sure.
Every other position he didn't have one.
Fair enough.
He's going, maybe I need to get my boots on and get out there, or it's an academy product.
I'm giving Jim a ring. Jim's on the phone.
Exactly. And I can't get my heart rate above 140 or I'll probably, just die. I'm not there anymore. You got Davies and Sessegnon on the left. So Sessegnon's got no hamstrings. Davies isn't even left wing back. So he's got no one on the left. So Udogi's coming in though. He's pre-signed. So he's thinking, I've got an untried young guy I didn't pick coming in from Italy. That's his only option on left back. Left centre back, Longley and Sanchez. He's thinking, that's got to be sorted. Back up
Yeah.
to Romero, Yaphet
And then
Tanganga.
Sanchez goes it after the window closes. So he hasn't even got Sanchez. So Sanchez is gone. But at the end of August, when the window closes, he buggers off to Turkey. So we haven't even got Sanchez there. We just got Long. And when did Longley go then?
He was on loan, wasn't he, as well? So he was going.
He went back. Yeah, exactly.
So he didn't have a left centre back. He only had Longley and Sanchez. So he had one centre back in Romero, and the backup to that was Tanganga, who's gone now. He was a championship level player.
Yeah.
Then in goal he had Lloris, who was finished. He was calamity after calamity.
Yeah.
So when you look at the squad, he needed a goalkeeper, right centre back, left back, a central midfielder, a 10, a centre forward, and a right winger, just to have one player in each position that you can go, that's solid, and I can handle one injury.
Yeah.
That's only 18 months ago, and people are like, still, well, we don't have that perfect six yet.
I know.
We still don't have the backup left wing back yet. We still don't have a backup to Vicario that's good enough. It's like, guys, we've signed like 10 first-team players in 18 months.
Yeah.
Chill.
Yeah. And we had this discussion sort of at the start of the season, I think, as well, which was, how long do you give a manager when it is that full rebuild? To your point now, you can't just go out and buy 15 new players and there's your squad, get on with it. It just doesn't work that way.
No, it takes a year or two to get them cohesively working, and that's why.
And to get your deadwood out, by the way, the ones that were causing the problems, because that's the other side of the equation, right? We had too many knocking around on loan. We had too many that were bumping the payroll up. And we've managed to clear most of those off of the books as well. So that's you've got to build your foundations, and that's what he's done in the first 18.
And we saw that was going viral, isn't it, on Twitter? People were saying, prominent figure, I'm not going to dig individuals out, but a very prominent figure said, all Spurs want to do this window is cut the wages. That's the only priority the club wants. Well, if that's all they wanted, they wouldn't have signed anyone, by the way.
Yeah.
But that is just crazy talk, because half of our wage bill was taken up by Lo Celso, Ndombele, Sanchez, Skip Højbjerg, Sessegnon, Sanchez, I won't mention him, Longley, Perisic. Lloris, over half the wage bill was these guys.
Perisic,
right?
Perisic was on about 280 a week, wasn't he?
He was.
250. Lloris was on 200 a week, wasn't he?
Huge. We had a huge ring because Conte wanted to keep. So these guys took over half the wage bill.
Yeah.
So it's fair enough. And we'd then, before getting rid of the majority of them, we got rid of a couple. We went and signed Van der Ven. We went and signed Vicario. Went and signed Madison, and a few others. And then it's fair, the club went, chill, everyone. Let's get rid of some of that big smelly pile over there I don't want anymore, eating all the money. And then we can come back to buying some more players.
Yeah.
And people are so angry about it.
I know.
I'm like,
I know.
I find it baffling that human beings can't understand the logic behind that decision.
Yeah. And it's how do you build teams and how do you integrate new people into teams? It's all very well. If you're starting from scratch, it's a different dynamic to if you're having to bring people in and integrate them. But you can't really bring, like I've said, a whole new team in and expect them to start performing at a level that you need them to. I'm pretty sure that Ange and the team in the background would have been saying, listen, we need 5 or 6 this window. We need 5 or 6 the following window. And there is a plan. They don't just sit down 10 minutes before the window opens and go, right, what do we do then? Yeah, they know exactly what they're looking for in January. They will know exactly what they want to be looking for next summer. And to do the rebuild and embed and get your philosophy, your culture into the team, it's going to take 2 to 3 years minimum to do that, probably longer to then get the success that you want. It's going to take 2 to 3 years just to build the foundations and start to see the ceiling of the players rising. So, 18 months is no time at all when it comes to stuff like this.
It's not. It's like you can go and, in any facet of life, you can say, right, I've got the money to get 10 people to do this job.
Mm-hmm.
When they join, they've got to go through this whole learning process of the culture, their responsibilities, how they use all the tools, how their manager wants them to work, blah, 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 blah. All these things happen when anyone joins a new job, be that joining a new football club or joining a new company, whatever it is. You go through that change, and that becomes an invaluable asset that you go label as experience. This person gets it. They know the systems. They know the processes. They know the culture. They know all this stuff, which is worth just as much as their ability to execute as a whatever they are. And the same with footballers. Like Pep. Pep is this thing where you bring in an academy player, surround them with 8 people who know exactly what they're doing. Those academy players are going to flourish. If you bring in 11 academy players, if you bring in 3 academy players amongst a team who are all relatively new, it's going to take longer for them to flourish because the other players are trying to figure out what they're doing as much as the academy players. They've got no one to go, how's this done? Show me. I'll just copy you.
Yeah. And you know, Angie's point around the fact that we've got an inexperienced team. They're a young team, but they're an inexperienced team in terms of playing together as well. They're not only just immature in terms of age, they're immature in terms of their journey as a team.
Yeah.
What happens is when you're learning, right, you fail. Fairly regularly you fail. When you're really stretching yourself and you're really trying to learn something new, you fail because that you're operating at the edge of your known ability. So you step over that line every so often and something goes wrong and you go, shit, right, learn from that, don't do it again. And that's what's happening with this team at the moment. Yeah, they're operating at the edge of their conscious capability, not necessarily their overall capability, because that's how you explore, but of their known capability at the moment. They're pushing themselves week in, week out, in training, in games. And it's when you hit adversity, you find out a lot about yourself, right? You don't learn that much when you're winning. You learn more when you're losing or when you're having to deal with mistakes and overcome adversity. It's like, you know, when you learn to drive, you don't learn to drive when you have driving lessons. That teaches you how to move the car. You learn to drive when you're out on the road on your own and you have to take evasive action, or you have a near miss, or you're on the motorway for the first time. That's how you learn how to drive, and you get the experience to make you a safe driver, or not, as the case may be. But that's where this team's at as well. They're learning how to play with each other. They're coming up against obstacles and they're finding ways to get past those barriers.
Oh, exactly. I did my bike test this week. Failed, by the way.
But I bet your missus is happy with that.
She is fuming. Why now? It's not fuming. It's just like, why now?
Why now?
Why?
Great
when you have a child and you have no time to do any hobbies and you're already going to the football all the time?
And it's going into winter.
And it's going into winter. Why now?
Why not?
Well, the answer is I saw on a beautiful autumn day, I saw a guy driving past on a really cool motorbike and said, I want one. And there's nothing more logical than that. But anyway,
exactly.
So yeah, where's it going? So the answer, like, when you first start, someone goes, here's how you change gear, here's how you turn, here's how you don't crash into the back of someone, blah, blah. So I know all that, but put me on the bike and I'm like a giraffe with 4 left legs. You know, I'm trying to, my brain's going, I know I've got to pull that, do this, fit gear, do all that. Freaking minefields going on. But give me a week and a motorbike with an L plate on it that I'm allowed to drive, and just let me drive in circles and around my local area. I will come back infinitely better. Without an instructor, just because it feels natural. I've had time to practice it, and it's the same thing.
Yeah.
But I have to go through falling off.
Yeah, and if you take that analogy a few steps further, at some point you'll become proficient on the bike. You'll be able to drive on the road by yourself, and you'll feel ultimately confident. But you're acting as a single rider, if you like. And then what you might do is you might say, well, I want to join a motorbike group, and actually I go and ride with other people. You've then got to learn how to behave in that group, because you don't ride as a single driver anymore. You've got to understand and this is the intangible culture piece. So how do things work around here? You know, if I go shooting off and overtake the leader of the group, is that frowned upon? Do I sit back? What levers do we wear? You know, what time do we meet? Where do we meet? All of this stuff is then how you integrate with a group and how you become part of that. And yet, at elite athletic level, it's different to riding a motorbike. Of course it is. But the theory remains the same. These are human beings They're put into a situation that's unfamiliar to them, and you can't be successful immediately. And this is where City have, this is where the money that City have comes into its own, because they don't necessarily, except for Haaland, they don't really go out and spend. Well, not even Haaland, Grealish, sorry. Except for Grealish, they haven't really spent that big. Not over the years. They've gone out and got their 50, 60 millions here, there. But they can leave them on a bench for a year and a half while they integrate and get used to the way that they play. We can't do that. We go out and spend 60 million. That player's got to start because that's our most expensive signing, and we can't afford to leave them on the bench.
Well, the advantage they've got is the foundation it all sits on. Because
exactly,
if you go build a 3-bed terraced house in central London, whatever, that's worth, let's just say, 2 million quid in the right spot. If you go build it in Sunderland, it's worth 150 grand, 200 grand. I don't know the real numbers. I'm just guessing here. But my point is, they've got the best bit of real estate they could build their land on. So whatever they build on is infinitely, because they've already got all the foundations done, they've got the planning permission, they've got the best builder in the world. All
have
that,
they got the planning permission?
Well,
they might have 115 breaches of local regulations.
Yeah, did they tip off the council with some dodgy brown envelopes to get all the permission to do this? But whenever they add anything, it's infinitely... So it's already there anyway. Their foundations are structural there, whereas everyone else is still trying to buy their foundations and put them in place and get going. So it's much easier for them to layer on top of what's already there.
Definitely.
So that's why they've done all this big spending they need to do. Now it's just topping it up. Now it's a new lick of paint, all that kind of stuff. Whereas we're still trying to build our third floor. Villa preview, quickly touch on that before we finish.
Yes.
Villa, probably, what's that make it? Probably the 4th hardest home game of the season, 5th hardest home game of the season.
Yeah. Good team.
Assuming there's hope Son will be fit, but he obviously won't be fully fit because he's not been available for the last 3 games. Same with Odegaard, he's going to be out.
He's out for a while now, isn't he? I don't know the extent of the injury, but Ange said it was a serious setback.
So serious sounds like more than a week.
For sure.
Van der Ven has got a strain, so he's out for 4 weeks. So he's out. Udogie's played endless minutes of no rest because of, and is going to play more now. So we're not at full strength, but do you still think we're strong enough to see this game over the line?
Yes, is the answer to that. Is it going to be an easy getting it over the line? No. They're a good side. Emery, if there's a criticism that Ange doesn't have a plan B, Emery's probably got a plan Z at some point, doesn't he? I mean, he's the ultimate horses for courses manager, I think. Whilst he has the philosophy, he's very good at playing to the opposition's weakness. So it's going to be a tough game. It always is against Villa. I worry about their pace up front without Mickey in the side. I'm worried about Udogie at the moment as well. I think he's going through a bit of a rough patch. He's getting caught out of position quite a lot. And I wonder what's happening at the back in terms of communications. I see quite often on both flanks, actually, Porro and Udogie getting pulled in to marking the sort of like right-hand channel and leaving the right wing or left wing open. But with us having 2v1 in the middle with Romero and Van der Ven, it's almost like you've just got to knock across, guys. And the communication at the back seems to be wanting. I do worry about Udogie at the moment. He's getting caught out of possession, and I think, as we spoke on previous pods, if he loses, he turns over the ball quite a lot at the moment. And when he loses it higher up the pitch, it's almost like his head goes down and he doesn't track back as hard and as aggressively as he could or should do. So I do worry about that. But do we have enough? Yeah, I think we have enough. But they're a decent side, so it ain't going to be easy. And it's going to be biting the fingernails time come sort of like 85, 90 minutes, I think, if we're only 1 goal up or anywhere near that. Yeah, it's a big test of where we are, isn't it? I think it's what we want to find out. And we're going to need to win 80% of our home games this year if we want to get into the top 4, just because our away form isn't there. We're not quite that level yet where you're going to win most of your away games, because most sides in the Premier League win most of their home games. And you're differentiated, largely on those away games, but most of the sides are going to win at least 50% of their home games. Most will. So it's a key one for us to win.
I'm
Yes.
going to have to jump because I've had a missed call and a text
No
from
worries.
my mother who's got my son today. And
Okay.
he is ill and needs picking up right away. So quick Villa scoreline prediction.
2-1 Spurs, obviously.
2-1. 2-1 Spurs. I'm going to go for the set. I'm going to go for a scrappy 1-0 win for Spurs.
Ooh,
Go for a clean sheet for
I'll take that.
once.
I'll take that.
Yeah.
Right.
Up the Spurs.
Can you, Spurs?